We perfect our technique so we can be clearer in our speech when we dance. So that when we do say something with our characters, with our passion, it resonates.
Do it again.
Welcome to BalletWise. My name is Michael Wise. I'm your host and creator. This entire video series has been created to help young dancers, old dancers, professional dancers, and even their parents understand more about the ballet world, the different facets of the things that we need to deal with, whether it is understanding your technique better, whether it is understanding your performance better, whether it's understanding the different types of companies that are out there. Well, today we're going to have a little bit of a different approach. In rehearsal today, working with a young dancer, she's working on a particular classical variation, and she asked me a very interesting question. How do I become the character that does this ballet? How do I present this variation in a way that says I am that character? Now, one of the things that I was known for within my career was character creation. I would either do the bad guys, or I would end up doing the buffoon or the hero, rarely the prince, because I'm more in that if it's quirky, if it's interesting, if it's got real depth, that's where I'm going to go. And I feel like some of the more simpler characters quite often cannot be presented properly if you get too deep into them. So today, from encouragement of people, we're going to have a very interesting video. So let's start with character creation. Now, one of my very first mentors, and almost my father figure in the ballet world, was a gentleman by the name of Duncan Noble. Duncan Noble taught at North Carolina School of the Arts for probably 25, 30 years. And I was very fortunate for him to be involved in my life and have trained me. But he came to me when I was probably about 14 years old and said this to me: Michael, you need to understand that there is no bad part, and every part is needed in a ballet. If you look at a ballet like a photograph, each one of those characters has a prominent place in that photograph. And that includes the soldier standing in the back holding the spear. So it doesn't matter what you are, you make that photograph whole. He said you can take characters like the peasant standing in the back holding the flowers, or the soldier holding the spear, and you can make them more into something that gives purpose to that part. He said to me, like, if you were the soldier standing in the back with the spear, instead of just standing there and looking like you're just holding the spear, you need to think of the fact that you probably have a wife and children, that you've got to protect people, because this is your paycheck. You cannot provide for your family if you're not doing your job. So you take your job very seriously. For someone that had I've always had a very active imagination, that really resonated with me. So I want to be able to bring what I've learned and those experiences to help you start to understand how to create your own characters, how to find the path that you need to be on to become the character you are representing. Now let's pick up some of the very easy ones. If you're doing a variation and you're basically one of the princesses, or you're the prince, you should be asking yourself these questions. Not where you fit in the ballet, but where you came from. Most princesses are generally danced with the understanding that you probably have had an incredible upbringing, you're very well educated, You understand that one day you will be ruling large groups of people and making large decisions, but you have a respect for the people that you will rule. That you're not some spoiled little brat. Now, if you're portraying a very young dancer, a very young princess, you might be the opposite. You might act a little bit more spoiled because you haven't been taught the different crafts that you would have to learn to be a head of state. So kind of keep that in mind. And if you're the prince, the same thing applies. Now, there's a big difference between the prince and the prince's brother, or the princess and the princess's sister. The elder sibling is going to be very royal, very regal, very soft with their port-de-bras, how they hold themselves, how they present themselves, long neck. But they're never going to look down at people, and they're not going to be rude. But if you're playing the brother of the prince or the sister of the princess, that's different. They are going to be pulled up, but they're going to look down on people because they are spoiled. They don't have the responsibility of running a country. They're usually going to be the ones that want to run around and get in trouble. And the young princess, she might be a little bit spoiled. She might want all the attention. So be aware and ask questions, but know your character. And if no one can tell you who that character is, create your own. Now, let's say you're doing Juliet. Juliet is one of those incredible female roles. And you have so much character development that takes place from the very, very beginning to the middle to almost the end to the very, very end. She goes from being a little girl to a young adult to an adult in the course of one ballet. And some of these things may not be. You look at Romeo and Juliet and understand that not a lot of time takes place between when the ballet starts and the ballet ends. We're not talking about 10, 20 years. We're talking 6 months to a year that whole story takes place. So if you were going to be playing a young child, how do young children act? They're hyperactive. They've got these bright eyes. They only see possibilities. They're not cynical or angry or, what I hate to say, which quite often happens, a zombie. If you're watching this video, you are interested in not being a zombie. You are interested in really becoming an artist. And stagecraft is just as important. So if you're doing Juliet, you need to understand, where is that little child in you? Bring that little child out. When you get into the middle regions, when she finally meets Romeo, it's that first sense of love. It's a connection that you don't understand. And it makes you see the world as if fireworks are going off. You have to find that in yourself. And near the very end, you have accepted this relationship. You've accepted the love that this person is giving you, and you're returning it. But the problem with young love is we're very rash, and we make decisions that aren't always the best. And we all know how the story ends, with the death of two young lovers. All of that in one ballet requires a dancer to go through so many different stages of that character's development. But you have to find those qualities in you. Now, the qualities I'm referring to are facets of you. And I'll use myself as an example. I am traditionally a very positive person. I believe the best in people. I like to be funny. I like to play games. I'm a little bit all over the place. But I want to keep the environment around me encouraging and light so that we can grow and build. But I've played characters that are mean and cynical and angry. And I've had to do them in a way that feel real. Now, we as human beings, we have multiple different facets to our emotions and our personality. So we all know how to laugh, and we know what that feels like. So have you ever tried working on a character with just that general feeling of joy that comes from laughter? Because quite often that's going to bring more into your dancing. If you're going to be doing something that is, well, it could be like peasant pas de deux. You as the young lady in that pas de deux, you want to dance it in such a way where you feel alive and free. You have a very simple life. You don't need complex things. You're an easy person. You have close relationships with everyone around you, but you have to present that character in that way. Now, if I were to do peasant pas de deux, which I've done before, and performed it many a time. But to me, it's not a difficult character to play because I'm going to search inside of myself and find somebody that is very content with their lives. I'm going to find those qualities in myself that are very positive and light. And I'm going to dance it in a way where those qualities are going to be shown, but that's not necessarily me. Always remember, whenever you're performing a part or creating a character, you use facets of yourself and you use your imagination, but you do not become it completely. A part of you has to reside back and watches. And when you're playing around, and let's say you decide to do a variation and dance it like you're Minnie Mouse or you're a rainbow unicorn, which I know those sound a little bit crazy, but you might want to try it. It could be kind of fun. But when you do those things, you know you're doing them. You know you're trying to dance it like a rainbow unicorn. And at some point, you may stop thinking, oh, I'm trying to do it like a rainbow unicorn. And for a moment, you might feel like you're probably a rainbow unicorn. That's the process I'm talking about. There's a part of you that knows that you're not the rainbow unicorn, but you're allowing yourself to move and be free like that rainbow unicorn. I hope that made sense. If this doesn't make sense, leave a comment and let me know. I'll try to break it down even further for some of you. Now, when you're playing characters that require more depth, you have to start with yourself first. I've made comments on previous videos about how you may want to just stand in the mirror and make faces, because I still do it. I can raise my eyebrows. I can squinch my nose up. I can do weird faces. I can be a child, because I use those to demonstrate and to create the characters that I've had to perform out throughout my life. When I coach people, I have to be able to give them an understanding and a representation of it for them to learn to do it themselves. But they have to start from somewhere, and they have to start that on their own. Can you stand in front of a mirror and make yourself look angry? Can you stand in front of the mirror and make yourself look sad? And not in a cartoony way, but in your way. You know what you look like when you're angry. You know what you look like when you're sad. You should learn what those look like, and you should be able to recreate those looks or something remotely close. Because if you're performing a part where you're grieving over someone that's died, you need to be able to hold your body in a way that just makes you look like you're grieving. You're not going to stand up straight and go, oh no, he's dead. That's bad. That's bad ballet. That's bad acting. But if you look at the person and you feel all knotted up inside and you see your face and it's like you can't accept it. Those are qualities that we need to develop outside of our technique. Because the first time you're able to really dive into those places, you're going to knock yourself off your leg. So you got to learn when to turn it on, when to turn it off. But you got to understand the character you're portraying. And that requires your imagination. You have an imagination. You're a human being. And some of us have been taught not to use it. And some of us refuse to give it up. My imagination is an integral part of who I am and how I see the world. If you could have just seen what was going on before we even started filming, you could understand what I mean by that. Because I had my producer laughing her head off and she was on the voice, like she was going to cry any minute. But that's what I mean is we have to make things feel real. We have to make things important. But we also have to believe in them. Now, understanding more complicated and more difficult characters require you not only to understand why the character is the way they are, but then you will have to find some of those qualities in yourself. Now, I'm going to give you an example. I've never killed anyone, and I pray to God I never will. But I've played parts where I've had to react as if I did. Now, I can use my imagination and step back from it and watch what my imagination presents to me. And in my own head, I can go through the scenario of how would I react? How do I think I would react if I did something very bad to someone? Then understand, well, what if it's not me that's having to react that way? What if it's this other person who thinks they're overly entitled, who doesn't think they could ever get in trouble? How do you think they would react? Once you understand those things, and once you've played out those little letterbox scenarios in your head, almost like a movie, you'll then be able to start crafting how you want to present that. And this applies to any character you're doing. Now, there are some characters that many of us don't like playing because we become embarrassed. There's a secret. They're the best ones to do. The ones that you think you're going to be embarrassed to do are some of the best ones to do on stage because they're the most fun. There are no rules. I've done the court jester. I've run around stage and pinched people or stuck my finger in their ear. Why? Because that's what the court jester would probably do. And I got to get away with it. Where else can you walk out on stage and do stuff to people in the middle of a show and not get in trouble? See? The advantages of being the character have major perks. I've had to play the buffoon. I've had to play the drunk. You know what? Those are fun characters because they don't have the rules that apply to what we believe society expects of us. It creates a freedom. Those are the fun characters to play. But there are other characters that aren't fun to play, but you understand how to play them. And as long as you're able to maintain that balance between you're using your emotions to portray the character, that at times they may feel real, but you always know that's not who you are. I've had comments that I've heard from characters that I've played, such as, "You play evil really well, almost too good." Well, it's because I know what anger feels like. I know what frustration feels like. I know what despair feels like. I know what all of these negative emotions are, and I'm going to use them to create this character. Because once you know the story of your character, then you can find the emotions that would reflect that history. Whether it's the really queer one, or it's someone along the lines of just somebody who's passionately in love, or someone that basically is going to hurt someone. They're all characters. They're all manipulations of our bodies. You have your port-a-bras. Your port-a-bras can reflect those things. I can present the port-a-bras like I'm in love with someone, and it's this very soft touch. And it'll affect the way you even want to feel the movement. You have someone else that's more like the drunk, or more like the playboy or the goofball. And they're like, yeah, whatever. They're going to sit back. Nah, none of that stuff bothers me. Oh, she's kind of cute. You know, you can sit there and play like that all day long, and it's true to the character. And you're also going to have other characters that look like they're going to explode at any minute. And you use your eyes, and you build that tension. And your port-a-bras is going to be very sharp, almost like you're holding back at all times. You're going to pop your chest out. This is when you allow movement to become part of that character. You breathe differently with each character you do. Somebody that is going up to touch someone for the first time, and either it's because they love, can have that bated breath where you just hold your breath just a little bit. What is it going to be? You can have hope in your eyes. You have other characters that are just going to walk and tap you up on the shoulder, and it's like, hey, let's go. Because it's the way you would be in real life. And you'd have other characters who would walk up and not even tap you on the shoulder. They would stare a hole in your back. And we should all know those feelings. So character creation encompasses all of us. It encompasses our body and how we present our port-a-bras, or whether we present our port-a-bras. But if I just did this and nothing with my face, that's the way I want to say 90% of the dancers in the world dance. But if I do this, now you stop even looking at my port-a-bras and you start looking at my face, and you feel what's going on. That's really important. So when you're doing your variation, you're going to have these moments where you're going to be stepping or a preparation. Those are the areas where we need to let that character shine through. It could be happy, it could be sad, it could be angry, but those emotions have to be incorporated into the steps that you are comfortable doing. Now, we've all seen this where somebody does a beautiful pirouette, and at the very, very end of the pirouette, you see this big character pop out of it. Well, that's because the pirouette was comfortable. They didn't have to think to do it. They went into it focused, they did the turn, and when they knew that it was done, they then brought the character back. Like I said earlier, when we do a variation, we have to learn to turn it on and turn it off, and turn it on and turn it off, and turn it on and turn it off. So the more we can work on understanding our characters, the easier it is for us to be able to show that personality here, show that personality here. But in between it, no. That's where that manège happens, and I got to focus. So those are all things that you need to deal with. So really keep that in mind. Now, I realize that this can hopefully get you to start to understand how to create your characters, because a lot of it's going to be very personal to you. How it works for me isn't always going to be exactly how it works for you. But how it works for me can be used as a blueprint for you to start to figure out how it works for you. Because dance requires us to be the artist. Dance requires us to play characters. Dance requires us to feel, to be alive. Because people come to see us dance. People come to see us to feel. Not just to be mesmerized by your feet, or how well you turned, or how you jumped. Because if you've seen a dancer do, an incredible technician, do their variation, it may be flawless technically, but you only need to see it once because there's nothing new. The next time it'll look the same, the next time it'll look the same, and the next time it'll look the same. There's no point to see that person do it again. But somebody that dances with real spirit and that character and a sense of personality, every night's going to look different. Every night's going to feel different. Because we as human beings are not always the same thing every day. Now, I'm always going to be who I am. But I'm not a carbon copy of myself every day. There's some days I come in here and I'm a little agitated. And there's some days I come in and I'm really bouncing off the walls. So characters have to be the same way. A good character is something that you can believe. We are creating that story. We're using our technique to tell it. It's our language. But it's the intent and the feeling and our port-de-bras and our faces that create that for our audiences. And when you can learn to allow this out, it is the most incredible, freeing feeling you will ever have. I wish I could give you detailed answers and understanding of if you're doing it right or you're doing it wrong, because there are no right or wrong answers. If you're doing something, it's a step in the right direction. But remember, it doesn't matter how much our body sings if our face isn't singing as well. So when you do your variation, or you're doing that story ballet, remember your face as well as your body, but also your spirit has to be radiating who that person is. you'll find some characters that are going to be very much like you can just play them like yourself. And you're also going to have some characters that you're going to play because you've nothing like you. But that's where your imagination, where your interpretation of what you can see in your imagination comes from. And then it's how it would affect the character or how it would affect you that allow you to go deeper into that part. But this is not just some old man ranting and going off on these things. These are all things that I've had to coach people on. These are all things that I see that are lacking in the industry. And I see directors getting frustrated just as well. Because for a lot of directors, whether they're the school director or your teacher, or whether they're a ballet company director or they're a choreographer, they want to see that passion in you. Use the music. The music will tell you quite often what happens. You can practice this even in your ballet classes. If you have grand battements, do them angry. Trust me, it'll get noticed. Do the adagio as if you're truly in love and that you want to put the softest touch on someone. These are all skills that we have to practice for them to then be able to, for us to incorporate them into the dances we're doing. The variations and the ballets and the pas de deux. The worst thing for a dancer is when you have to dance with someone that has no feeling. I've had partners, they are wonderful people, but when we're on stage and I'm trying to really give all of myself to that person on stage, and all I get is literally a 2x4, that is the worst thing you can do. So don't be a 2x4. Don't dance that way. You're not wooden. You're not Pinocchio. Now, we all know those dancers. And if you're listening to this and you're paying attention to this stuff matters. And that's a major step in the right direction for you to create these characters. But you also know that there are probably people out there that need to hear this message. Well, then share these videos with them. Sometimes it's the best way for you to help a friend. Now, but they may not get out of this what you got out of it. But I like to say, if you do nothing, nothing changes. You do something, something might change. And our goal in life is we want to be great dancers and artists, but I would also like to have the people around me rise to that same level. I want people I care about to be phenomenal dancers and artists and dancers, because then we have something we can share. So hopefully this has helped you. Hopefully this will help others. Be aware that we have so many other topics that we've talked about, whether it's putting passion in your dance, whether it is understanding what it's going to take for you to walk in that first day and make the right impression. So please go back and watch those, because they might be able to help you just as much as this one has. If you've liked this kind of content and you want to see more, give us a thumbs up. Subscribe. Because we don't do this for ourselves. My time on the stage is over. If I ever go on stage now, it's doing a character role and it's not as a dancer. But it's my turn to give you the tools to go on that stage and be so much more. And maybe, just maybe, I can help you open something up inside of you that can set you so far apart from everyone else, that can make ballet be your language, your voice, to speak to people. You want to be that dancer that when you dance, everybody is silent because you make them feel. Remember, technique is just the language. It's what you say with it is what matters. We perfect our technique so we can be clearer in our speech when we dance. So that when we do say something with our characters, with our passion, it resonates. It hits the cheap seats in the back of the theater. You deserve to feel what that is. And you also deserve the praise that it will bring. And you will always be different once you're able to do these things. Because you will no longer be able to be held with others. Because you will no longer be that zombie, that 2x4, that technician. And we've watched these great ballerinas. We've watched these great male dancers that just make us feel. Well, it's time for you to step up and become one, the same. Make us feel. Go down that road. Allow yourself to play characters. And don't be embarrassed. Live it. So hopefully, I've given you that encouragement to make that step. Hopefully, you've already subscribed. Hopefully, you've given us a thumbs up. And hopefully, you know people that probably deserve to hear this message. If you've got a question or a story or something you'd like to be covered, leave us a comment. I would love to be able to bring on new topics, new ideas, because I learn just as much as you do. So, once again, my name is Michael Wise. This has been BalletWise. And hopefully you'll be here the next time to continue to take this journey and enter into that conversation about how we can make the ballet world and every dancer so much better. Thank you.